Hey there, welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to try something a little bit different. I don't normally flip the camera around and let you see me, but I had a video kind of explode the other day, got over 2,000 viewings now, and I realized that one of the things that really seems to be driving the interest in that video is I talk about getting started in solo. And the basis for that video was the fact that my friend Bill and I have been wanting to play and we just didn't make it happen. Something always came up. We didn't have time, or in my case at least, part of the problem was I kept exploring different game sets or game systems. So I would find a game system and I would get excited and I think this would be fantastic, and I would start digging into what makes the game tick. And then, being a dungeon master for over 40 years now, the next thought process was, well, what rules would I change in this rule set to make it more enjoyable for me? And I would just continually go down this path. So I thought what I would do today is try to put together a video, and I'm going to try to do this with as few edits because editing is painful and I hate it. So I'm going to try to do this in as few edits as I can so I can get this done and basically put up some pretty graphics and move straight on and you guys can see it. So today what we're going to talk about is you want to play solo, but you just don't know where to start. So I've written up a few notes for myself so I can kind of keep on task here. And I'm going to go through those, and hopefully this can help you go from wanting to play to be playing. The first thing you need to do is understand why you want to solo role play. And some of those things can be you cannot find a compatible group, you can't find a compatible time that, 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of your friends can get together, especially when you get older. You're very busy, your kids have obligations, you're going and doing things with your children. Sorry, that is my old dog. She's a little senile. She wanders around and her toes click on the hardwood floor. So sorry, she's old and I can't do anything about it. Anyway, you've got a group of friends who want to play and you just can't get times to work out, and it just always seems to fall apart. Another reason is you have this cool game that you think is the shit and no one wants to play it. I don't know how many times that's happened to me. I'm a rules light guy. Most of my friends like AD&D, 5e. One of them inexplicably likes Pathfinder of all freaking things. And none of those games really interest me because they're too heavy and too many little fiddly bits, and no one wants to play the cool little 2-page rules light system that I found on itch. Heck, half of my friends don't even know what itch is. So those are just some of the basic reasons why you might want to start solo role playing. Another reason is, and I'm just going to be frank, in my opinion, solo role playing makes you better, especially if you're a DM. Because if you've only ever played, you really don't know all of the work that goes into being a dungeon master or referee or judge. There are so many little moving bits and pieces and parts that a GM has to get a handle on and control to make the game exciting for all the players. And switching that around and sitting in that seat and being responsible for all of that yourself really puts it into perspective for you and makes you appreciate what game masters do. So the first thing that I would suggest is dealing with the RPG systems. I suggest picking an RPG system that you know pretty well, or a very simple system. Use a system that you know well enough to play a session without having to look up the rules more than a handful of times. Or you can pick a system that is very easy to understand and you can get into it quickly and pick it up easy and get right into playing. And one of the things that this is actually really good for is playing a solo game session is a great way to get a handle on the rules. Imagine you're sitting at a table and you don't really know the rules and you've got 4 or 5 people that are going to get into a combat or a situation. how do those rules apply to that situation? What modifiers, bonuses, etc.? What dice do you roll? When you're playing solo, those are the exact same things you're going to have to figure out. And so one of the things I used to do when I picked up a new game system was I would play out of combat by myself, because me learning to play by myself, I would learn all those rules and I'd look it up. If it took me 15 minutes to find a rule, so be it. I was the only person at the table. But that's what I used to do back in the 80s when I was learning a new game system. And it really helped me kind of cut my chops on a new game system. So this is a great way to kind of pick that up if it's a game system you've never used before and you want to learn it. All right, the next thing that I would consider is finding a setting that you know well that will not require you to look up a lot of specifics. A good option for this is movies, TV shows, and books. Something that you're pretty familiar with, and just imagine being able to sit down with a friend and discuss whatever the setting is with a friend for about 10 minutes without having to pull out your phone and Google something, right? That is probably a good enough setting for you to run a solo session or a couple sessions and not have to look up the details, you know. And some things, I know I'm a victim of this, I am a person like this. I will sit down and read a book. And here, just a side story here. I was reading a book last night about it's a World War I fighter plane group in France fighting the Germans during World War I, and they mentioned a SPAD, S-P-A-D, which I didn't know what that was. Well, that was actually a French company. That was the abbreviation, because no one can speak French well enough to sound like you know what you're talking about. So they abbreviated, the Americans and I think the Brits abbreviated it to SPAD, and that became sort of the nickname for the planes that they were flying. I'm a victim of that, or I am a notorious, I don't know what you want to call it, but that's something I do. I'm sitting there reading and I'll stop and I'll go explore this, and pretty soon I've read 3 pages and it's been 45 minutes because I've read 17 Wikipedia pages. You want to find something you don't need to do that with. You know, like if you're really familiar with medieval Britain, pick that setting. Or maybe you know World War II frontline combat in 1942. Maybe you're a science fiction junkie and you know Buck Rogers forward and backwards. Or what's another one? Deep Space Nine, Babylon 5, that's a good one. I know a couple friends of mine that are like Babylon 5 junkies that know the planet that the third ambassador from Bajugabagi was born in. I mean, they know all that stuff. You need to find some sort of setting that you're familiar enough that you could run with it. Heck, if it's a zombie apocalypse, use your hometown. You're familiar with where things are. Maybe you need to find medicine in your post-apocalyptic zombie game you're playing, and you're going to make a trek across town to the Walgreens or the CVS to get some medicine. You know, knowing that setting and knowing, you know, along the way there is a hospital, maybe that might be important, or a jail. That might be important to that session, okay? So pick something that you know pretty well. The next thing you're going to want to do is you want to gather your tools. You're going to need a notebook. I personally have this really fancy leather notebook. It's actually a cover. And then I have 2 moleskin, I think they're called Kahir books, but it's a softback. And then I've got a pen. I like this because it has some pockets. What I'll do is I'll write up a 3x5 card with like little specific rules or something in there. I can also write my characters on 3x5 cards and keep them in there if I want as well. That's one idea, or you could get a smaller one like this. This is a little field book. This one also has little spots that you could put cards in. Those are great. You could do characters, you could do monsters, whatever. And then, of course, you're going to need some dice. I have a small bag that I carry that has just the dice that I need for whatever I'm playing. Then you're also going to want rules. Again, you're not going to want to carry one of these around along with your AD&D Player's Handbook and your AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. If you're somebody that really likes all those detailed rules, then you're going to want that. But at the same time, I would also suggest getting something like a Dungeon Master screen or a rules reference that you can print out. I often will have small, this is about an A5 size. I will have the referee reference sheets printed out and thrown in here in case there's something that I need to look up. But I like to also play this. And one of the reasons I like this is a complete game. It's got all the rules, all the Dungeon Master stuff. It's got random tables. It's got all the monsters. It's got everything. And if you happen to notice, it's about that same size. I can actually put it inside the notebook if I want, and everything that I need to play right there. That's all I need to play. But however you want to do it. I also would suggest if you're going to be playing a particular setting, print out some of the details. Maybe like we were talking about a zombie apocalypse, maybe print out a small map of the area that you are going to be playing in your hometown. Also, another good thing to have is a small printout of random stuff. Going back to the zombie apocalypse, maybe a table that has that you could roll, like say you find a body and you want to search that body, maybe a random table with what you could find on there, maybe a lighter, a pocket knife, a watch, maybe a map of the region or a map to a secret military medical cache. Have something like that will be useful in the game. And the last sort of thing that I would encourage is removing distractions. I was talking a little bit ago about when I'm reading a book and I come across things that I don't know, my first inclination is to get my phone out and Google something. It's something you just have to overcome. It will kill your solo gaming if you're constantly looking up setting details or looking up rules. And there's a sort of another reason why that's a problem, because how are you going to access those things? In today's world, more than likely you're going to grab your phone or you're going to grab your tablet. And what is the first thing you're going to see when you grab your phone? All those notifications. So removing your distractions, put your phone on silence, put it away. Don't even have it at the desk or the table you're playing at, because those notifications will pull you from your immersion in your game, and your 15-minute, 30-minute game session will suddenly become a 10-minute gaming session with a 30-minute discussion with your wife about what you're having for dinner all week long. Trust me, I've been there. Turn off all your notifications, put your electronic devices away, find a comfortable and quiet place. If you can't find a quiet place, everybody's got noise-canceling headphones these days. Put it on. Put some sort of music in the background. If you go to YouTube, there are tons of ambient music videos that you can listen to. There's medieval, there's science fiction, there's exciting, Marvel soundtracks, all that stuff. That's a great thing to throw in the background while you're playing. It helps you focus, especially if it's related to the kind of game setting you're playing. All right, and I'm going to finish off this video with some further ideas and thoughts that have helped me get into solo gaming and be successful with it. First one I want to talk about is determine a starting and ending point. If you have an actual goal, instead of I'm going to explore this hex map. I mean, you could do that, but especially when you're starting out, don't start with my fighter and my priest are in hex 1 and we're going to explore. It's so open. then you're going to be worried about, I got to have a weather table, I got to have a terrain table, I got to have, skip all that. Say you're going to start at point A and you're going to point B, or I'm going to find X. I'm going to rescue X from Y, or have a clear purpose. I'm going to clear this dungeon. I'm going to explore this ruined building, or I found this ruined space Hulk and I'm going to explore it. Have a particular goal for your game session and it will sort of catapult you right into it and get you going. Don't start with, I know there's a dungeon 3 hexes over, but first we're going to wander into the village of Willow and we're going to meet all the townspeople and find all the cool hooks and then maybe pick up some sidekicks and we're going to go eventually to the jungle and find the dungeon. Just go straight to the dungeon. All right, which leads me to my second point, which is jump directly into the action. Don't worry about the town that your heroes came from. Don't worry about the global social economic impact of the regional issues, the orc army that is 20 leagues to the west that's eventually going to become important in the story. Skip all that. Don't even think about all that crap. Figure out exactly what you're doing. Say, I have a band of heroes and we're going to explore this dungeon. Start at the door to the dungeon. Don't worry about the random creatures you might meet on your way there. Just start at the damn door and say friend and the door opens and you're walking into Moria, okay? Also, do not flesh out any NPCs in too much detail. I like to say this NPC, and I like to use Perilous Wilds, I think it is, that has, I've used it in some of my videos, where it has a character trait for an NPC and then something about their appearance or their goals. 2 little things, that's it. Things will come up and you will flesh out that character, the NPC, or even your character. You'll flesh out those NPCs during play. Do not create an overarching storyline that you'll explore over the next year of your gaming sessions. The reason I say that is you won't play over the next year. You'll start, especially if you've been a DM, you're going to start thinking of NPCs and factions and locations and destinations. And pretty soon you've done world building for 3 weeks and you haven't ever even dropped a single die in a game session. Don't do it. Jump straight into the game session. All right. And that leads me into start small and build through play. Sorry, my dog's barking. Start small and build through play. That time you spend in between games where you're developing some of that can also be considered playing. Building and in between sessions and doing all that behind the scenes work that you do as a DM when you're fleshing out everything, that is considered by many to be play too. I think it is. When I have completed a session and we met an NPC at the end of the session, before I start the next session, I might go and flesh out that NPC and come up with more details about him. But don't do that at the beginning. Do that in between sessions later on. All right. One of the great tools for that is carry one of these with you all the time. You can do it on your phone, but I'm just going to tell you, sitting down with this and putting your phone down, you will be way more creative and way more successful by using a notebook. You will write a lot of details. It'll help you remember it. Also, you won't get distracted by figuring out what that kind of dagger that you want the NPC to carry, when was it first created, who created, where can you find ones in museums today? Go down that Wikipedia black hole and you'll spend 3 hours and you've written 2 lines about your NPC. Use this, don't use your phone, okay? And the last point I want to make is have fun. Remember, the reason you're playing a game is for you. Don't worry about being 100% correct on rules. Don't worry about following rules and guidelines specifically and perfectly. Worry about you having fun. And I know this is going to be bad, some people are going to complain about this, don't worry about fudging. The very first encounter you happen to have in a dungeon, and you roll a critical on your hero and your hero dies, that sounds like a terrible session. Maybe instead of killing your hero, maybe your hero wakes up 3 hours later with a headache, he got knocked out, and they stole all of his gold. Then you can continue the adventure. Just remember the game is for you, and it's about you having fun. And I hope that helped. I hope that helped some people kind of kick it off and get started playing something. Thanks. If this helped you at all, let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.